Do you have a couple that kind of come to the top, the cream that's rising to the top that you'd like to share with a new podcast listener?
Absolutely. Yeah. So the two things that I had three.
Okay, let's do three.
They're hanging out with you. This is a hangout session. So the person listening right now, they're hanging out with us. It's just us and them. And think about the people you like to hang out with. For me, I want to hang out with authentic people. I want somebody who's like comfortable in their own skin, that is unapologetically themselves, that's not trying to be someone else. Okay, so as a podcaster, you have to be comfortable in your own skin, be unapologetically you, and just be authentic to who you are. You don't want to try to be Joe Rogan. You don't want to try to be Ed Milet. You don't want to try to be anyone else. You don't want their show. People are hanging out with you. If they want to hang out with Joe Rogan, they'll go hang out with Joe Rogan. And a lot of people do. Now, I think we can listen to other podcasts and like learn some stylistic things, but at the end of the day, like it's got to be just who you are. That's why they show up. They show up for you as the host. The other thing, and this is something I constantly think about all the time. If we're teaching something, and most podcasts are teaching things, we're either entertaining and teaching. But if we're teaching something, people want to learn from vulnerable people. I hear a lot of podcast hosts and guests, like they have to be the expert, meaning they always have to know the answer, and they're a little bit timid to share anything vulnerable, timid to share mistakes. Well, here's the reality. I will learn from you way better if you say, I messed that up big time. This is what I learned from it. This is how I got out of it. Instead of, oh, I'm always perfect, and then just do like I do. I'm like, man, that's not even true. So being vulnerable, and with that, stories are freaking, that's the magic. So
now, is stories the third thing, or is stories part of number two?
Stories are the third thing. And it really should have led with it. So everyone wants to be entertained. And people say, oh, everyone's attention spans are so short. No, they're not. Shoot, man. I'll binge a TV show for 5 hours straight. Mm-hmm. Like literally, I have a 5-hour long attention span if your story is that good.
I did that last night, by the way, Matt.
What did you see?
You have to put me on a spot. I don't remember the name, but we watched several episodes of one. Yeah. And then we went, it was the second one was called Chaos on Netflix. Chaos.
Yeah.
Anyway, ended up watching that until it was completely over. So yeah, we spent hours there. So you're right. It's not our attention span. That's interesting.
And so if we see people bounce off our podcast quick, maybe we didn't have a good enough hook at the beginning, which we've already talked about. But I want to go hook, and then a very short little, hey, this is what the podcast is about, and then immediately into story. And here's the thing with story. All story, like a really good story, has 3 parts. It starts with a crisis, and then it goes into a struggle, and then it goes into a resolution. So if we always want to become a better storyteller. And crisis, that's like something happened. It wasn't great. The stakes are high. So if you can come up with a story where we got some crisis and we got high stakes, like there's a lot invested in this, like I was sweating it. And then but I really wanted a great resolution. I'm trying this, it wasn't working. I'm trying this, it wasn't working. I'm trying this, it wasn't working. And then finally we end it with, here's the resolution. And this is the aha. Like I ended up becoming a transformed person because of this whole thing. That's the 3-act story. It's been around for thousands of years. We can learn from a 3-act story. And if we start, so I want to go with a hook and immediately into story. And if it's my guest, before I start recording, I'm like, hey, what's your best story? And I'll have them be primed up. I'm like, hey, could you walk me through it as if it's fresh to you and you haven't told it 100 times. And like, I want to be on the edge of my seat. Don't tell me the whole thing now. I want to be on the edge of my seat. Walk me through it. And then if the guest starts telling this amazing story, it could be 5-10 minutes. I won't lose a single listener through it.
Yeah.
I've got an episode tomorrow, and the guest is Rhonda Britton. She wrote a book called Fearless Living. This book was #1 New York Times bestseller. She was on Oprah telling this story. She opens the book with just this crazy true life story. And I'm on the edge of my seat reading her book. I'm going to have her tell that story tomorrow on my podcast. Once they're hooked in with this story, this is like, think again, Netflix. You're watching the show Chaos. I'm sure it had all the elements. I'm sure there was crisis and struggle, and you're like wondering what's going to happen next. How's it all going to come together? How's it going to work out for them? That's the elements of any good TV show or any good book or any good movie or any good podcast. And so once we hook them in and they're like on the edge of their seat, like, what's going to happen? Is it going to be okay? Is it going to work out? Then we can teach. Now, at this point, we're like, yeah, this big crisis happened. It was crazy. And I tried all these things to get better, but then I fell into drugs and alcohol because it was such a painful thing, and then lost my way. And I didn't know if I was going to make it out. And then all of a sudden I had this epiphany. Somebody gave me a book. I learned this thing, and then I applied that, and then everything changed, and then the whole world got better. Now, here's what I learned. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now I can teach 5 points. And at that point, they're so invested that they actually learn the 5 points.
Yeah.
And then they come back. So they come back the next week. They're like, all right, I want to be entertained again, and I want to learn again.